My name is Judy Rogers. I'm a visual artist and curator. I was born in Budapest and came to Perth in 95. I have a 25 years long experience here in Perth, but I wasn't trained as an artist, although I was always surrounded by art. And one of my earliest memories, leafing through my mom's books of the Prado collection, visiting galleries. I had a high school teacher who hired me in the breaks to help with his projects in church decorations or different murals. So I was quite exposed to art. I was trained as an engineer, and I worked in a paper manufacturing and printing industry for 13 years before emigration. After the kids were born, I decided to retrain myself as an artist. I was always interested in it. I was more like a consumer than a maker before. So it was a very conscious decision to change career or outlook. If I have to describe my work, I do figurative work with quite strong emphasis on storytelling. Probably because I was growing up with Christian art, looking a lot of Christian art and socialist realist art. So for me, the figure was very important. The other important aspect was the line and creating line like marks. So when I started to launch myself as a visual artist, I went on a sort of expression which covered that, which allowed me to be recognized. So that's the first point when you're coming from outside is to have something recognizable, rely on your artwork to introduce yourself. On the concept side of my work, I'm interested in very personal subjects. So I see art making as starting a conversation. You start, the work is speaking for yourself, and the viewers join in if they have connection to it or not. So it's a sort of idea of when the artwork is out of the studio, it has its own life. So my main themes around family dynamics, the kids growing up, my concerns about the environment. It's almost like a chatter. So something very bothering me, I make an art or sort of work my borders out through artworks. And that works for me personally and hopefully keeps the work fresh as well. I changed style and expression after a period. As I mentioned, I was hanging on to a similar expression. And nowadays, mainly the effect or a subject matter chooses the medium I'm using. So I'm familiar with most painting mediums. At the moment, I'm mainly painting and don't do much sculptural work, but I've done that before. So with painting mediums, the subject chooses the medium. At the moment, I'm working on a new series of botanicals called Quaint Dirt, linked back to my stay in Lisbon, Portugal. How is a Portuguese trip and Western Australian plants connect together? So you just have to check it out. And you see these works. So it seems everything connected. I work on a portrait at the moment for my friend. Just last week, a previous buyer of mine wanted another portrait of their dog. I'm working on 2 shows as a curator at the moment, a judging job coming up, and I'm planning again a Lisbon residency, artist residency for next year. And I'm participating in an international show which shows in 5 European and 2 Asian countries, different artists and different expressions, some digital and some physical formats as well. So that's also very exciting. If you ask what I consider my main accomplishment is to make it in the Perth art scene without uni education. It makes the process much, much longer. And if you can afford. My advice to anybody to go and get yourself a uni degree and other degrees as well. So learning never ends in my view, because as an artist, I see you are the product. What coming out of the studio, what you're painting, what you commission, there's just a thing. You're working from the beginning on your name, and your output probably never ends until you die. So artists probably don't retire. The work is changing through the years. My main influences were figurative painters. I have a very big connection to medieval painting, the Baroque, the Renaissance painters, because the simplicity and the energy going into figure, it was very inspiring for me. And that's sort of visible in my portraiture. It's a very calm observation of the figure or human emotions, telling very complex stories just by the turn of the head or different postures, which the Renaissance was really a master of, still talking about very complex stories in image form. And this is my aim as well, to simplify, slow down, to get connected back, or just tell a story of kids growing up and the relationship is rotten for a couple of years and you have to work through these sort of emotional and physical problems as well. So this is why Caravaggio's work, very dramatic, the lighting is the composition. Dürer with the simplicity and again with the line, he investigated very human stories and for me was very inspiring. Later on, I was more connected to Spanish painters because when I started to really delve into painting in Western Australia, I just noticed the light conditions are really similar as the Spanish or Italian light. What we sort of lack is this in painting, what I thought is the contrast of the darknesses and the light. So Goya, Zurbarán, Velázquez were very influential on me. What was very helpful, again, to do this big change, you launching yourself as an artist, is the Western Australian art scene is quite welcoming. So you can enter in different levels and you can join in exhibitions. It's sort of a very Australian thing to have art competitions, which actually helps you to put the name out, make contacts, have your work out first with almost cost or no cost. Only thing we lack is a gallery system, which when I started was still less present, but that sort of reflects on what can happen to an industry when government decision interferes with everybody's business and half of the galleries have to close down. So you have to get ready for all of these changes, nothing permanent. If I have to describe the process of how I work, is an idea start to percolate and then I work out most of the technical issues, from the research of the color palette to the research of the topic, actually intellectually, physically have a look at what other artists done, and then the image comes to me. So the period of the preparation actually quite a long, can be very long period. It can be a year or two, and then the image comes to me and I make it. So in a way, I don't have any happy accidents in my work. It's all controlled, all planned. You have to do the hard yard at the beginning and you don't see much coming, but everything is stored, everything is useful later. That sort of investigation puts me to other directions as well. So I normally work in series, which also technically and intellectually work through the idea. When you make a one-off work, it's a bit waste of sort of seems to doesn't go anywhere, but probably it's not true. Back to the research idea of an artwork. I personally don't believe anybody has an individual original idea. So nobody comes up with something totally new. Everything been done in some form before. And I think what we do is contributing to this collective consciousness. So I never hang up on an idea. If I see coming up in another, it's actually, you always get back as people start to imitate you. That's not true. You can come up with parallel ideas, and it's very Perthian thing, because we live in isolation and a lot of things happened in a different time frame here, historically, painting-wise, and everything comes up in their own term. So back to the research, I'm not just researching what paint has done, but actually researching the idea ideologically, scientifically sometimes, or other aspects, the human aspects of it. So you have, even if you do a genre painting, like a botanical work, it has other aspects which actually, if you have the knowledge, it reflects in your work. I think it's very important to be learning constantly, picking up new things, and that can lead to you to develop the work further and further. Some work doesn't need to be developed. Sometimes that's also a learning curve, to have a great idea, figure out in some way and drop it. And then sometimes that idea come back later when you have more knowledge or more readiness for it. You can develop it later. So that was a big learning for me, of not sticking to the same thing endlessly and try to hammer it to my needs. The dropping is actually a very big learning for me. So because I don't know how other people are with, but you have a new idea start to percolate, it has a big emotional effect on me. I have to do it, I have to work on it. It's like a desire, so you have to work it out. The other part is my work is when I'm physically working on a painting, it's a total bliss. It has to have my undivided attention, and this is why very early I went for a studio, and that sort of investment for a just beginning artist can be quite daunting, because actually you have to fork out money. But there's the physical change to get into the studio. It's make the work more intense. And in my case, I am connected to an art center, so it has a artist community as well, that's an added bonus. But when I work physically and the door closed, I'm in total bliss. I'm in control, total bliss of the work. This elevated mental state is worth it. It's almost like it's a high for me. So this is why I work constantly. If I don't paint, I get fidgety and unsettled. Just a sort of physical, these little rituals of you put your apron on and then you are in a total mindset. Nothing matters. That's very important for me, and that's my making is a slow making, so it's steady work. Again, it's planned out before, almost like develop the formula, so I don't unsettle myself. The making is very, very joyful. So during this career, I didn't really suffer from blocks, and in a way, how I work relates to this, and very well put it by Chuck Close, the American painter. Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just turned up to work. And that sort of sums it up, because even if you're not doing some major commission or some earth-shattering new project, then you have other things to do. If I can't work on something, I do something else, which quite a lot else to do if you are a visual artist. Carrying on this 25 years constantly, I'm sort of still a mid-career artist, so I don't know when you arrive. I don't see that actually happens. You sort of start somewhere, you're developing yourself, slowly creeping your name up, your prices, etc. Again, if I would say, in my opinion, if you want to save a little bit of a time on that, go and get a diploma at some institution. With that kind of investment, you get your peers. Your name is out, you have a group you carry with yourself, and it's actually quite beneficial. So in my opinion, this idea of the genius artist working in the studio and somehow make a living out of it is just a dream. You have to do a lot of other things than just create an artwork. Again, back to institutions, they often don't give you the business background which you actually need to develop. You are the product, you are the maker, you are the curator, and the other jobs which surrounds the making and exhibiting or putting your work out. My advice is to skill up if you want to start an art career. Look at your art business as a starting professional in a trade. So you need to be trained, you need to have some sort of place to work as a studio or build a studio at home. You need money for materials, you need tools, storage facility for your work, you need transportation. So all of these are added on expenses and sometimes specific jobs. If you start to exhibit or start to put your work out, you need to be your own curator, you need to be your own installer a lot of times. You have to learn how to converse with the people coming into the gallery. You have to learn how to talk about your work. Being a writer is a very important part of an artist because actually you have to communicate in a different form, not just image ways. You need to start promoting yourself. You need to get advertising. You need to get marketing done. You need to do administration. Actually, just packing your work is not an easy stuff. To transport, you have to find transportation. Tony Johnson, well-known Western Australian sculptor, one of his advice was, if you want to be a sculptor, buy yourself a ute, which is a very simplistic sounding, but actually a very, very good advice, because if you can't transport your work, then you have to pay for it. The entire lifestyle of yourself have to cater for this type of business. My car is the size of my works, or my works is the size of my car. I don't do bigger because it sort of adds thousands of dollars if I can't transport it, can't fit in my car. My advice is spend money on something which is important. Good pigment, that's important. A good new course, important. Books is important. But some other things you can be, penny pinching. Just you have to figure out how it works for you. And back to the financial success, definitely in the beginning, because you're putting the hard yard in and you're still not making a living out of it. But don't think that's a reflection on your art or on your talent or ability. It's just a fact you started a business with no or very little investment. Okay, so your work can be shiny and beautiful, and you can say, oh, this is much better than that person who can get $11,000 for the same size work. But that person probably 30 years in front of you, and that actually counts. You have to put the hard yard in. And this is why I said, if you pinch a couple of years down with going to an institution, you're a little bit ahead, but then you're carrying the cost of it. So for all of that, my advice is to skill up. On the skilling up is I'm not just talking about your medium or your artistic practice. You have to skill up in promotional skills. The other aspect of the skilling up, institutions don't really give you idea how to present your work, or less emphasis on it, which is a very, very important part. It's one thing to make it, but putting it out is also very important. You need to start video promotion, probably the cheaper way. Do social media, but don't disregard the older type medias because people still reading newspapers. You never know your audience. You can introduce yourself in different channels to different people. To this point, I was talking about what you can do for you, but I think it's a very important aspect, making art, to find your own community, to connect to people who are doing the similar things than you. The camaraderie is priceless. You have people who can help you with good advice or just knowing what you're going through. And that's very, very important. Also, if you have a team built around you, you can share certain activities. You can find someone who does a certain job better than you, and then you can trade with them, with your expertise, what you can offer. You have to work on these relationships, but I think they're very rewarding. So get your own community. Diversify what you do, events to curatorial work, installation work. So arts it's a broader than just working in a studio or exhibiting in an exhibition. And just volunteering is actually a very, very important part to get into, actually lead you to a job or meeting with people or introducing yourself. But with all volunteering, my advice is to choose something you're passionate about so you're not burning yourself out. A lot of self-governed groups exist, non-for-profits, which have a specific focus on sometimes mediums or regions and they collect artists. So I think it's a good idea to just even check them out because they create a lot of opportunities for artists at the beginning, definitely. Leaving the business side behind, as an artist, I think you can work on a certain aspect through your entire career. First of all, your focus should be on art. So you live and breathe art. Then not just visual art, you go to theater, read. This is all movies, music. This is all adding to your own knowledge and practice as well. So trust yourself through this journey. A lot of us have this recurring dream of they find out we are fakes, and this is an imposter syndrome which most of us have, which is fine. I think it's necessary because at least keeps you on your toes and you always evaluate what you're doing, which is, if you don't know what's wrong, you never make it better. So think back what you've done, think back how you're building, and that's the first step to make it better, in my view. And don't hang up on technical aspects, because technical aspects are just one aspect of art making. It's always the emphasis on why you're making the art, not how you're making in a way. That's changed through your career. You get better. It's a skill. You can pick it up, can do courses, you can develop totally new things which suits you. The other point is, if something is right, I'm not saying you have to stick to it constantly, but you can refine it. So this is also goes back to the constant learning. You learn through the whole thing. You making new formulas. You figure out how to develop yourself, how to work better. Little things. If you are the person who can't think of working on the same work through month, or can't have the intensity of working on several work in the same time, then maybe you are in the wrong medium, and start, instead of oils, start acrylic, which dries there quickly. And if you're getting bogged down on overworking, do short bursts of work and say, if it doesn't happen today in this time allocated to it, it won't happen. And then that might keep your marks and expression free. Not all work is ready to get out of the studio. Even if you invested in it a long time, let this self-evaluation take place. Better not to let something out which you don't feel totally happy about of the studio, because you will never feel good about it. What I find also is, can't just translate down an entire period to one work and represent it's one work. So if you prepare a series, so much energy going into this intellectually and physically as well. I plan my work for about 2 years periods, and that allows me to maybe get a grant or fix other part of the exhibition and fit it with other things I do, because again, with the diversifying your art practice. So I work as a curator, I teach art as well. I try to do artist residencies frequently because it gives me such a jolt in knowledge and overall cultural aspects. I've been with art in China, Russia, Hungary. I was in the 18th Asian Biennale. I promote myself in social media, and that's a very interesting platform in a way of getting new people you wouldn't dream of. Again, recapping, sort your finances out, look at the business as a small business. You are a tradie. Learn constantly, develop your own tribe. This is a people business, and skill up and enjoy.